Welcome everybody to this week's Business Block, and my guest today is an extraordinary lady, enabling people to find their confidence when they're doing their presentations. Her company is called softskillsuccess.ie, and I'm delighted to invite Maureen McCowan to the show today. Maureen, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Miriam. Delighted to be here.
Where are you, Maureen?
I'm in Naas in Kildare.
And so you're living there, and the business is based out of Naas?
It is, yes. Yeah, the business is working from home. Well, it's like everybody, but I had been working from home pre-pandemic times as well. So it was just a new business at that stage. So we'll see as things open up whether I get an office work in an office hub. The idea of a hub sort of appeals to me a little bit, I think. So we'll see how that develops.
Yeah, there's a really, really good one actually called M Space. They're actually in Women's Inspire. Just for everybody watching, this show on a Monday is powered by the Women's Inspire Network. And that's Samantha Kelly, the tweeting goddess. And of course, Maureen is also a member of the Women's Inspire Network, like myself. So a lot to talk about, a lot of pros and cons to do with how this pandemic has affected us professionally. How has your experience of being a professional, a female entrepreneur during the pandemic, how has it been for you?
From a business point of view, the pandemic has been very good. It has helped my business to grow and bring it to a place that I would never have dreamed of before this. So from that point of view, things have really expanded. I suppose I set up the business in February of 2019. So it was the first year in business, was just starting to really get off the ground when COVID hit. And like everybody, it was like, what do I do now? And one of the things was that some of the workshops that I've been delivering, people had asked me, would I consider putting them online? And it was on the long finger. I was like, yeah, I'll do that sometime. And then suddenly I was thrown into the situation where I had to deliver online. So it means that my public workshops, I now have people attending from all over the country, which wouldn't have been possible before that. So obviously, you know, the whole range has gone so much more, but also delivering abroad. So I have a client that I'm delivering to in quite regularly in South America, so Latin America, that I'm delivering training there. And for a corporate client last week, I was delivering an 8 a.m. to their Asian cohort and then to the States in the afternoon. So things like that I hadn't imagined happening. And, you know, that has happened as a result of COVID, just moving things online and seeing how well it can work.
And have you found yourself working with a lot of foreign nationals?
No, foreign nationals living here in Ireland, is it?
And abroad.
And abroad. So just from some of the companies that I've been working with, that there would be, you know, that I'm working with non-English native speaking, you know, individuals. In Ireland here, a few people have come onto my courses who wanted to improve their skills for presenting at work, communicating at work, and, you know, that they wanted to just get more comfortable with that. So they attended some courses with me from that side of things as well. Yeah, so it's all angles.
All angles. And your own background, I mean, you were a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that you taught French as well, so that yes, we both have that in common, that we loved the French language. How did your journey grow from being, you know, a novice teacher, I suppose, in the 80s? Or did you qualify in the 80s?
I did, yes. Yeah, so qualified in the 80s and teaching up until yeah, but I'm still on career break. I'm on my 4th year of a career break at the moment. So yeah, so that's where I'm coming from. So my entire career was teaching, and French and Irish. So teaching teenage boys how to communicate in Irish and French. And just a number of different things happened along the way that I was like, few things. First of all, I love teaching, and that's all I ever wanted to do. And I could never imagine myself doing anything else. And when our youngest son started into 3rd level, there was that bit of freedom that was there, and my parents and my in-laws had passed, so there was no responsibility, if you like, from that side of it. So it was like, there's a bit of time here for me to do something for me. And there was that niggling question, am I able to do anything else other than teach? Because that was all I had ever done. And I went to a career coach, and, did various tests. And he said to me, are you sure you want to leave teaching? Because that's where all of your skill set lies. And somebody said to me, well, why don't you do corporate training? Now, Miriam, I have no business background in that. When I was told that, I was like, what's a corporate trainer? I have no idea. And that was how it started. I decided that I was going to do the professional practice cert in training, design and delivery. So I did that with a view to working as an associate trainer with one of the larger companies. But I couldn't even get to meet anybody. I couldn't get an interview. So I thought, well, why not try this and see, can I give it a go myself? So I sort of fell into starting my business.
Wow, I mean, it seems like a logical transition, but can be quite daunting, can't it? To go from teaching teenagers to teaching adults.
Yeah. But the same skill set, I suppose at the beginning, I thought this is such a huge change from teaching. And it is on so many levels. But fundamentally, what I'm doing now is the core, what I loved about teaching for all of those years that I've been there. And it is helping people to communicate, and that's essentially what it is. Whether it's teenage boys, preparing them for their Leaving Cert oral exams, or whether it's helping somebody to get confidence to speak up at a meeting or to deliver a presentation, the same skill set is there. And I get the same buzz out of it, that I got from watching the students getting ready for their oral exams, that's still there as well. So all the elements that I love. And I don't have to correct copies, and I don't have Christmas tests coming home with me over the Christmas holidays to get corrected and things like that.
I know. It is a difficult one. And what was your initial reaction when you decided to make the transition into doing something that was very corporate as opposed to second level education? What was the reaction of friends and colleagues? Did they support you?
Very supportive. Yes, I would have had support from everybody all along the way. And I suppose from colleagues very much, it was brave was the word that was used again and again and again. You're so brave. And I suppose, realistically, because in teaching, a lot of people would sort of, prepare for and put money towards early retirement, that if they're AVCs. So people of my vintage don't take career breaks to start doing something new and something different. They're thinking about early retirement and maybe doing something that way. So what I was doing was unusual. You might get the younger teachers who take career breaks, they go off to travel the world, they do all these exciting things, but it's not something that my peers would have been doing. So from that point of view, it probably would have been seen as, being brave to do something like that. But the other side of it is that, I'm very fortunate from teaching because there's that safety net that was there, that I had at the back of my mind. If this doesn't work out, I can go back teaching. And it's not as if it's returning to a job that I found that I didn't like anymore or anything like that. It was the safety net was there. And that's a huge luxury, and I don't underestimate that.
Yeah, isn't it just? Isn't it such a luxury? It's wonderful to be able to have that. It's one of the few. You're one of very few who I think have that. But it relaxes you. It means you can concentrate. When you were working with, as you mentioned earlier, teenagers, did you find that they were being prepared well at school, for example, for interviews? Was that the wake-up call, or did it come from that and several other areas? Because I noticed that you focus a lot, as I've just shared your website screen here. Sure, you can probably see it there, Maureen.
Yeah.
Gain clarity, speak confidently, and unleash potential are the three headings that you go with there, which I think are absolutely excellent. Because I know, certainly if you're talking about young people, and my husband is a grinds teacher, we find that a lot of the young people are not prepared, they're not confident when it comes to even going for a first interview. But we also get a lot of return people who've left university, some people who went into business for a number of years and now have got to go for interviews to progress up the ladder. And they've lost their confidence when it comes to presenting themselves, presenting what their department does, and actually just doing the interview with confidence.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And just that way, a big part of it is taking time out to think about what it is that you want to say, whether it's an interview. When it's coming on, I expect that you have guests who come on here and they're really nervous beforehand as well, and that they don't know what it is that they want to say, but taking the first thing, whether it is preparing for an interview, preparing for a podcast, preparing for delivering a presentation, or preparing to speak at a meeting, you want to contribute to a meeting, taking that couple of moments to think through, what's the point that I want to make? What's the message that I want to leave people with? And that's really important, to take that time to do that. And a lot of people don't. They just think, well, you know, I'll be grand and I'll go in and I'll say something and it'll be fine. But what can happen then is that our minds start running away with us, and we start thinking, going down different alleyways and thinking of different things and stumbling over our words, and then coming out and feeling unhappy with how we performed because the preparation wasn't done beforehand. So I'm a big believer in always having lots of preparation work done.
And it's so important to have someone like you, Maureen, because we don't realize until, even if you're years doing this, you know, and I would be years going, but I still need someone impartial, who's experienced, who can say to me every now and then, that little thing there that you're doing is a big distraction for your audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can do that. You can bring that. You can, I'm sure very diplomatically and nicely, you can bring that to them. I'm just having a look here at some of the companies, some of the clients that you've worked with here. How did you find that? How did you, was it difficult to start the marketing side?
What I found was that like I said, when I started out, I had no business knowledge background. So Google was my best friend. I literally was Googling how to be successful in business. And one of the things that came up top of list was networking. And I was like, oh gosh, what's that going to be about? And started Googling to see, well, you know, what networks are there and so on. So networking has been really big for me. I'm a member of quite a number of networks online, like Women's Inspire Network, but also when we were face-to-face, but, you know, face-to-face networking as well. So that has been huge, and a huge part of what I do. And from the clients that are there, they have approached me. I haven't gone knocking on any doors. These are clients that have come to me because they've seen the content that I'm putting out. I share quite a lot of tips on social media. LinkedIn will be a big one for me, and people get to know me. So it means by the time somebody chooses to work with me, they pick up the phone, they know what I'm like. They've decided that I'm a person that they think they can work with, and we're just having that chat. So it makes it easier when it comes to that stage. You know, people who, you know, for all of us, some people will like my style, some people won't. So it's filtered out already, and it makes it easier by the time they come to me. So if I'm working with the groups like that, sometimes it was working with individuals from within the organizations one-to-one. And that could be, you know, middle managers who want to communicate better at meetings, lead their team meetings better, deliver better presentations to colleagues and clients. It could, and then for some of them that's there, it's, you know, group training that's been delivered, like one of the organizations last week that I mentioned. So there's a variety, and I love the variety of what I do as well. I'm working with lots of different clients.
And you have a very, very well thought out website here. It's actually really very easy to follow. Very, very interesting website. I would recommend that anybody interested would have a look at this. It's excellent. And you break down your initial packages into one-to-one, in-company, and masterclass. So can you tell us a little bit more about one-to-one?
So the one-to-one typically is somebody who is newly promoted, or they want to get promoted. They have identified areas that they want to work on to improve, and the one-to-one is very much tailored. So normally it's between 4 and 6 sessions. We have a first chat to find out what areas they are, and it could be that they find that they aren't contributing as much as they should be at meetings, and they know that they need to do that to build their profile to get them into that position of promotion. Could be that they want to work on particular presentations, but sometimes, you know, the range of clients, I'm working with a client at the moment who is a mindfulness coach. She's delivering one-day training into corporates, and she wants to get more structure around what she's delivering and to improve the level of interaction that's there. So that's one type of client. So there's a range depending on what people are looking for. it's really any speaking situations, because very often people think presentations or presentation skills training, and it might be preparing speeches for, you know, at conferences and that type of thing. That's actually a really small part of what I do. An awful lot of it is normal everyday occurrences when people are working with me. So the one client who was working with me last year, and she had been promoted from the States. She had moved to Ireland during the pandemic, and she was very senior in a European role, so a European manager for an organization. But she did not feel confident when she was delivering her presentations. And the language that she used was reflecting that. She said she felt like she was an idiot when she stood up to speak. And, you know, looking at this person and looking at their job title, you think this is somebody who has it all together. She's got this all sussed. But those insecurities are there with so many of us, you know, and we feel people are looking at us, people are judging us, and that has an impact then on how we communicate ourselves and deliver our message. And it's important to have that confidence, that executive presence. So a lot of the clients who come to me for one-to-one, that's what they're looking for. Whereas if it's somebody who is really nervous speaking in front of a group, then I would suggest a group program is better for them, because they'll get the opportunity to practice in front of a group there. So, you know, it depends on what people are looking for really as to what suits best.
And then when you work in company, I've used to find years ago when I would do this in other countries, I went down the broadcasting route. So I have come out of Maureen's area now totally. So I really acknowledge what she's doing, and I know how hard it is, but I also know that there's a lot of angst involved also on your end, because you've got to put together packages that are actually quite straightforward and take the complexity out of it so that they can see through. And as you say, Maureen, get clarity. And another thing that, if I could just quote you on that, you say, your pitch is the opportunity for them to get to know you, like you, and start the pitch of building trust. And that's a great quote, because there you're isolating three really important things that you know you need to accomplish.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Really, really important. And as you said there, you've sat down and you've thought about this. You haven't started winging it in a meet with a client or someone who's presenting something. You are very, very clear what it is you want them to accomplish, what you want to accomplish as well, as you deal with that.
Yes.
Which is really great. But do you not find sometimes you go into a company, and depending on how big that company is, they have a culture and they have a hierarchy. And if you're dealing with a group of people, like I used to find this going into hospitals in France, there's a very particular respect that they will show each other. So if you're then going in and doing a training, you've kind of got to be aware of who they are, who the individuals are, and their rank within the organization, because you can't go into casual. And the language you use has to be appropriate for all. How do you work here? What are your in-company experiences like? And how large would those groups be?
The in-company experiences have all happened since COVID, so it's all been online.
Okay.
So I haven't actually been back in a room yet, and I know some of my training colleagues are, you know, posting up that they're, you know, back in face-to-face training. I haven't, and actually haven't had anybody ask me for face-to-face training yet. So I think I'm going to be online for quite a bit yet. But a lot of what I do when I'm working is in consultation with the learning development, or usually it's the HR person that I'm working with, to find out who it is that is going to be in the room and what the dynamics are and what their reason is for attending. And this would be the same as the advice I would give to somebody when they're putting a presentation together, that know your audience. I mean, your audience. It's the same thing. And one of the key questions there is, well, are they here because they're choosing to be here, that they see it as an opportunity, or are they told this is something that they have to do? Because their attitude coming into it is going to be very different, depending on where they're coming from. You know? Absolutely, yeah. And there was one company early days of lockdown where it was through one of the skill nets that this company was working with me, and they wanted to keep their staff busy. So they were just giving them training after training after training. And it was like tick the box exercise. So that was challenging, but I knew that before going in. So it meant that when I was putting it together, that my key area then was to show them the value that this was going to be in. It was communication skills training, and that communication is a life skill, not necessarily a work skill.
Yes.
And that you try to show them what's in it for them, because otherwise you're going to lose them, you know. But in a situation like that, that would stand out to me, you know. And I taught French, I taught Irish, and one of the toughest gigs is teaching Leaving Cert Pass Irish, because you have a lot of very reluctant students in there. So I know what it's like to be teaching, you know, in front of an audience who don't want to be there, and you really have to work on that. So that is a very important part. And then, like what you'd mentioned, type of language you use, dynamics between them, how open are people going to be in discussions? You know, if it's on Zoom at the moment and you're putting people into breakout rooms, are there dynamics that you need to be aware of people, you know, for whatever reason that shouldn't be put together? All of this, but they're all things that, you know, a good trainer should be checking out for, whether it's in person or online. These are all important.
Maureen, it didn't happen years ago. I mean, that's what marks you out as being a particularly good trainer. You've got the nous. Whereas years ago, I remember at the age of 21 being sent into the Paris Opera House to teach the artistic director and the chorus and the admin people, all different hierarchical levels within the organization. And I was told nothing.
Yeah.
You had to find it out for yourself. And if you haven't got the nous, you will sink. You will not swim at all. So this is the mark of a very good trainer, folks. You know, so please pay attention to what she's saying here. The third area that you mentioned is a masterclass. How does that work?
So masterclass, I have two masterclasses. One is the Master Your Pitch. So that's the networking pitch, that elevator pitch. So for business owners, entrepreneurs who are going to networking events, and they've to, even just that simple answering the question, what do you do? And so many people struggle to put that in a sentence or a couple of sentences as to what it is that they do or how they help people. And then when it comes to their promotion of themselves for that 60-second elevator pitch, that is a real opportunity for you to sell your business. And so many people do it badly. And that pitch masterclass, that came about, again, my friend Googled when I was Googling about, you know, being successful in business and networking. And I read about the networking pitch and I was like, what's that about? And found out what it was. And because I've got, you know, 10 years of experience, almost 11 years of experience in Toastmasters, I knew how to put a speech together. And it was like, a pitch is a mini speech. So you get people's attention. Yeah. And as I started attending networking events, I was attending 3 or 4 networking events a week, every week when I started my business. For the first year, it was nonstop. And people were coming up to me at the end saying, can you help me with my pitch? So I was working one-to-one with them. And then the teaching background clicked in and I thought, this could be so much more valuable if you've got a group together. They can brainstorm, they can listen to each other, give feedback to each other. So that was how that started. And that's moved online now, and very successfully online, which it was one of the things that I really thought, I don't know how this can work, but it's working really well. So that's that one. And then the second one is Communicate with Confidence. That's a 6-week program that I run. And that came about because I was having phone calls from clients who were saying, you know, they wanted to work with me, and they were looking at working one-to-one. And they would typically say, I'm fine if I'm only speaking to one person, but I'm really nervous speaking in front of a group. And I thought, okay, I can help you, but you need practice speaking in front of a group. So let's do that. So that's how I set about and put the Communicate with Confidence 6-week program together. And that came about last February when I ran that. And I had a free webinar, first of all, sort of a promotion webinar for it. And I was hoping to have 4 people. First time out, I thought if I've got 4 people, maximum of 6 on the program to keep it small for feedback. I thought if I get 4 people on this, you know, that'll be great. I sold out 3 of them. 3 consecutive ones. The demand was so high. So it's like, okay, there's a need for this, you know, and people just really want something that they can have, that they can see their progress and that they know that they're in a safe, secure environment. And that's one of the huge things for me. Encouragement and creating that sense of security. That's really important. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, just to throw it in here, have you noticed over the years a gender divide when it comes to the way people communicate?
I think I was expecting your question there to be a gender divide with regard to people coming to work with me, because I'm noticing that women are far more likely to come on to the group programs, whereas males prefer to work one-to-one, which is interesting, you know.
Oh, yes, it is interesting.
Yes.
Talk to us about that for a moment, if you want to first.
So, yes, just that I think it's probably because, well, we know that women tend to, you know, bond together very well, and that, you know, that there is that whole sense of community maybe is stronger with females. But I don't know the reason. I haven't identified the reason, but yeah, 2 of the programs that I've run so far have been all female, and then the others have had just one. I've never had more than one male on the program at a time, so it's always majority female, which is interesting, you know, but because I don't feel that men are more confident speaking than women, but I don't think they let it get in on them maybe as much as women do. And I think, you know, we judge ourselves so harshly. We can be so tough on ourselves, and we're expecting this level of perfection all of the time.
Yeah.
All of the time.
Totally agree.
And it was even, I was speaking with a client the other day, and she had been on a radio interview. And she'd been on a number of radio interviews, but on one interview, there was one question that caught her. And that's what's staying in her mind and replaying again and again. And even though the other interviews went fine, and I had listened to the interview back, and I've listened to it a few times, and I've said to her, you know, you recovered well. Yes, you were thrown. This is what happened. And you recovered well. And the rest of the interview went really well. But it's that bit that went wrong that's going around again in her mind. And I was just saying to her then, you know, we can't be expecting perfection of ourselves, because that's not normal. And, you know, gave the example about when I was delivering to the States the other day, I completely lost my train of thought in the middle of a sentence because the dog was going absolutely nuts, barking at something downstairs. And, you know, Mary, when you have that internal monologue that's going on, and in my head I was thinking, okay, I've got 2 choices now. I can pretend nothing's gone wrong and I can see, can I work my way out of this, or I can just say what's happening. And I chose to say what was happening, because I figured if I tried to stumble over it, then probably what would happen in my head was I'd be overthinking it, and I'd be making an issue of it in my head, and I'd make more mistakes. So I just said, I'm really sorry, totally lost my train of thought there. The dog is going mad. Something's going on downstairs. That's the joys of working from home. And then I had forgotten about it, other than having a story to tell clients now, you know?
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. And it's like what you've said, there's a part of your website where you say it is more important to be authentic than to be polished.
Absolutely.
You're too fake then.
Yeah.
And that's not what you want to convey. You want to convey your authority and your abilities, and you know, being authentic.
Yeah.
And that is one of those situations, you know, what happened, and then you move on from it. Absolutely.
And then you move on. Yes. And it meant that I was able to just really just park it then. You know, I had dealt with it and park it and then move on, and everything else was fine after that, you know. But I think people are probably much more open now because of pandemic. We're used to the interruptions, because whether it's children or dogs or a delivery at the door and all of that, so we have had to become much more human and real in our dealings with others as well, you know. So that's part of it as well,
which is a very good thing. It's a very good thing. I think it has also made us more aware of personal performance. And your point there is very good. That I think, you know, I've noticed it as well, that, you know, whereas women, when they're applying for jobs, they will follow the advice to tailor their CVs to a particular job. But very often the male approach will be, okay, I'm not fully qualified for this. Oh, sure, I'll give it a go anyway.
Yes.
And they tend to get ahead more because they've put themselves forward more, whereas we're more reticent to do that unless we've actually got the criteria right, you know. We hold ourselves back a little bit for that reason too. Maybe as well and I would be a prime example of this. I always have to catch myself. I tend to be a little bit more long-winded. you don't often find a lot of women who are naturally concise in the way they use language. I might be a bit more aware of that now because I come from a language background and a performance background. But really, in my own life, I really only saw that very concise behavior with a lot of ex-army women, for example, or people who grew up as an army brat, you know?
Yes.
So it is a thing that I see you focus on, being concise, clarity.
Being concise.
Very important. Where do you see you're going from here on in? What are your plans?
So what are the plans? Well, I will be planning to put some of my courses online that people can access them, that they don't need to be working with me, so that, you know, that's self-paced learning. So that's one of the areas that's there. To continue to move more into delivering corporate training as well and working with clients there. And then it's being open to new opportunities and seeing what happened, because, you know, 3 years ago, I couldn't have imagined I would have my own business. 2 years ago, I couldn't have imagined that I would be at the stage that I'm at now. And it's always just waiting to see what's happening and moving along with that. So while it's setting certain goals, but it's having that ability to be able to move and to flow as well with things that are happening. You know, like I said, that Communicate with Confidence program is now becoming a flagship program that I hadn't even considered it this time last year. So, you know, you never know what's going to be happening. So that's a big part of the joys of working for oneself as well. You know, that things can change, that it's not the same year in, year out like what it was when I was teaching, you know. So
yes, exactly. I mean, when it comes to, for example, platforms, have you found that for your particular training and coaching style, one works better than the other, or has that mattered?
My preference is for Zoom. From working from that. Is that the question that you're asking?
I was thinking more social media platforms.
Social media
but no, I agree with you about Zoom, because it is, by and large, it's reliable.
It is, yeah. But it has more functionality as well, between, you know, using breakout rooms, and you've got your polls and you've got chat and so on. Yeah. With social media platforms, I'm active across the four, so LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. And LinkedIn is that's my home. That's where I feel most comfortable. And Facebook will be the least one, I suppose, that it doesn't, you know, I'm on Facebook, but not a huge amount happens there. Instagram is interesting. I like it, and it's more fun. And then I love the conversations on Twitter, but, you know, so they all serve different purposes.
Absolutely, they do. Yeah. I agree with you totally. What about 3 pieces of advice for a trainer, male or female, but let's say someone who's breaking into this area, at a personal level and at a business level? What would you recommend to them?
I'd recommend, first of all, to get very, very clear on what your own message is, so that when you are asked that question, what do you do, that people get it and they know what it is that you do. So the tagline that I have for myself is Unlock Speaking Confidence. And that's a great opener for me into lots of different areas, because people, you know, it covers a multitude. So spending time to think about that would be first piece. Secondly, because networking has been so important for me, I would think that that's really key, that you build up a network, and a varied network. So we've mentioned there, you know, Women's Inspire, and we're both members of that, and that's you've got a range of people there. But it's also taking a look at in-person networks and different businesses and so on, so that you're not putting all of your eggs in one basket, you know, and that you're getting known in a wide area. So I think that would be important. And my third piece of advice, a lot of at this particular when I set up the business, I was doing videos and moving on to social media. Everything had been, when I was teaching, everything was private. You know, you weren't having students having access to any of your social media. And suddenly I had to be very vulnerable to put myself out there. Now, it wasn't me, it was my business that was being out there, but still there was that, oh gosh, I hate this. And when I was doing video training, or videos for social media, and video tips and all of that, and it was that whole idea, oh, I hate myself on camera. And I just started the mantra of get over yourself. And it's like, and that's my third piece of advice. Get over yourself. Stop holding yourself back.
Get out of your own way as well.
It is, you know, and stop holding yourself back and just do it, because ultimately, what's the worst that'll happen? And people who are criticizing probably wouldn't be doing it themselves. You know, it's the man in the arena. It's that quote again, you know, so it's going for it and not letting yourself stop you, you know, and that's what I would suggest to anybody setting out.
Absolutely. And your vlogs are wonderful on your website and on your social media. Have a look at them, folks. You're really good at this, Maureen. You're very, very good at blogging. You know, it's really, really a strength of
Thank
yours. You. I'm delighted you came on the show. And please, if you're out there and you are having difficulties, or you know someone who is maybe perhaps, because as we go through different decades of our lives, our confidence can inexplicably and unexpectedly dip.
Yes.
And that could be because of change of life. It could be because of career change. You've changed country. Maybe something has happened in your life that really caused a change. And you can't always explain it off. So, you know, someone like Maureen is ideal. You know, they can take that impartial view of what you're trying to put across and put you back on message. Yeah. And that's really important. So please have a look at her website. It's www.softskillsuccess.ie. Maureen McCowan, thank you so much for being on the show today. I've so enjoyed having you on.
Thank you, Miriam. Really enjoyed our chat. Thanks a million.
I'm
problem
at all.
Dodging the sun here, if you notice, it's coming.
I see that. At least you've got sun. It wants to shine on you. Clearly it wants to shine on you. No problem there at all. Everybody, I will see you next week. Join us on Business Block. More guests on a Monday from the Women's Inspire Network. Thank you very much for being with us today, Maureen McCowan.
Thank you.